Chapter 18. Dam and Boiler. Boiler doesn't hear Anne's entire sentence as he closes the window at him while he is still speaking. Boiler has no regard or compassion for people, especially the ones who owe him money. He goes to the bed and lie down peacefully as he places both his hands together on his stomach, with his right palm perched on his left hand. He is patiently looking at the ceiling while his thoughts are roaming around somewhere else. He removes his right hand from the top of his left and inserts it in his pants' right pocket to retrieve his phone. Once his phone is out and in front of his face, he looks at it and turns it on. His right index finger goes on an app called Time Left. He taps at the icon to open the app as it shows Anne's name in the middle of the screen. By the bottom of the screen, near Anne's name, there is a ticker that shows an hour 54 minutes and 22 seconds left. Boiler stares at the ticker for a while before closing the app entirely. He looks at his left side, then turns on the Bluetooth device placed on top of the small bedroom table. Boiler taps at something on his cell phone screen and starts closing his eyes as a calm expression takes over his entire face. Boiler is smiling while the Bluetooth device is being connected to his cell phone. Soon after that, a song starts playing through the device as it fills the room that was shrouded in silence a while back. The song is called Return of the Mac by Mark Morrison. Meanwhile, in the living room, a small sound can be heard from the outside. Someone seems to be standing at the other side of the apartment's front door, in the hallway. The noise depicts the jingling of keys, and soon turns into the noise of a key struggling in the keyhole. Outside the hallway, Dan and Airdrie are standing near Anne's apartment door. Airdrie asks Dam, "Having trouble?" Dam is trying to open the door, but is struggling with the keys. He turns to Airdrie and says, "Fuck! I guess Anne changed the locks or something. Maybe we should just come back?" Airdrie says, "But I hear music coming inside the place." Dam and Airdrie are trying to hear noise coming from inside the apartment. Airdrie listens to it carefully before he declares, "Sounds like Mark Morrison." Dam listens to Airdrie before he asks, "So, he's home?" Airdrie responds in an unsure tone as he says, "I guess so. Or maybe he let the TV on or something." Dam responds, "I better ring the bell, in case, if Anne is home." Dam right index finger pushes the doorbell. The doorbell makes a buzzing noise inside the apartment that can be heard by Dam and Airdrie, who is standing outside, yet close to the apartment door. Dam and Airdrie are waiting for someone to open the door for them. Airdrie looks at Dam from his left. Dam flips his phone on with his right hand. Airdrie asks after a moment, "So, who was that guy?" Dam looks up at him and asks, "What guy?" Airdrie says, "The one who was being aggressive to us when we were outside." Dam responds, "That was Frank Windsor." Airdrie asks yet another question, "What does he do?" Dam replies to his current question truthfully as he says, "He was a lawyer who was hated. He defended a guy who went to some house and killed a boy along with his sister. He also raped their mother while on top of their bodies." Airdrie asks curiously, "So why does everyone hate him?" Dam says, "Because he won that case." Dam and Airdrie became quiet and waiting. Dam rings the doorbell again. The doorbell buzzes again, making a loud noise inside the apartment. When Anne doesn't appear for another few minutes, Dam starts buzzing the doorbell again and again. The noise from the buzzing of the doorbell is still ringing around constantly, whereas, on the outside of the apartment, Dam is continuously pressing the doorbell. He stops buzzing and looks annoyed for a moment. Then, he starts banging on the door with both of his fists and started to kick the door with his right foot. The music inside the apartment stops immediately. Boiler shouts from Anne's bedroom, Okay, I'm coming! Fuck sakes! Hold your goddamn horses!" When Dam hears the sound from inside, he stops banging the door. He stands there relaxed, and once again patiently waits for the door to open. The door is being opened, and soon, Boiler's face emerges at the front door as he looks at the guests. He doesn't recognize the visitors, and he was not expecting anyone to visit. He looks at Dam and Airdrie before saying, "Who the fuck are you guys?" Dam patiently responds, "Hello, I'm Dam, Anne's father. And this is my friend, Airdrie. Is Anne home?" I had texted Anne to let him know that I'll fix his house's problems for free, but all I got was this response. Dam shows Boiler the text he got back from Anne. The text read, "Who the fuck is this?" Dam says, as he puts the phone down while still holding it. The flip phone is still on. Boiler doesn't see what he had responded with, as he says, "Well, your son is not here, and this place is already mine. Oh, and there is nothing really wrong with this place. So," with that being said, Boiler slowly starts closing the door at Dam's face when Dam calls out, "Wait, hold on." Dam holds the door open with his right hand as he asks, "How come Anne's not living here anymore?" Boiler opens the door again and responds, "I decided to live here." Dam asks, "Why?" Boiler responds nonchalantly, "He owes me money." Dam asks again, "How much?" Boiler replies, "It's none of your concern." Dam looks at Boiler suspiciously. Before he can say anything, Airdrie asks, "What's your name?" Boiler looks at Airdrie and smiles before responding, "Boiler?" Airdrie asks again, "Boiler? Is that your actual name?" Boiler shakes his head lightly as he says, "Well, no, it's not really." Dam asks, "So how did you get that name?" Boiler says, "Well, interesting story, but I don't think that you two want to hear it." Dam looks at Airdrie and then back at Boiler before saying, "Let's hear it." Boiler was in the theater class as he was rehearsing lines with another student while looking immensely happy and cheerful. He looked a lot friendlier than he is right now. He had always wanted to direct and write his very own play. It was his dream to show the world what he could do. Boiler went on and stood next to the teacher and gave him his script. However, when he handed his script to the teacher, whom he considered wonderful, he started reading the script right in front of him. Once the teacher finished reading the script, he nodded his head while closing his eyes. When the teacher was done nodding, he looked at Boiler's face aggressively and said, "I don't like it one bit. In fact, I hate it." He thought it was perverted, homophobic, and insensitive. So the teacher's right hand went behind his back and gave Boiler another script to work on. The teacher walked away, and while leaving, he threw away Boiler's script into the garbage can near the right side of the wide-open door. Boiler looked at his script in the garbage can. Then he looked down at the script he was given in his right hand. Boiler did not look pleased and started to go red. On Boiler's left side, he got a glimpse of the moment being played at the stage by another team of artists. The scene was of a woman screaming and her clothes torn off at the stage. Boiler busted through the main door out of the theater, as he thought, "I couldn't show mine, but they can show a woman getting raped on stage." Boiler left the theater immediately and decided to never go back there ever again. He felt like his heart and soul were going through great trauma. His dreams were being crushed right in front of his eyes. That made his attitude change, making him hate certain people and being pissed off at the world. He stood outside the theater and cried a lot. After a while, he wiped his tears off his face and got out of the theater's premises entirely. That walk out of his dream changed him. After that day, the theater was left somewhere in the background, and Boiler was somewhere else. He was standing at a sidewalk while looking down at the pavement. He thought to himself, "So now, what shall I do?" He didn't like anything else, and he clearly didn't want to work. However, he still had lots of money from his schooling. And he also got all this anger to deal with then. He needed a passion for relieving people from something. Boiler was still standing at the sidewalk when he looked up and saw a sign from a business across from him. The sign read, "Need money? Ask for a loan and there's no money back. But there is a large fee and might also cause a broken leg, broken heart, and melted face." That's when Boiler decided what he wanted to become. He wanted to be a loan shark. Boiler started to grin as he looked at the sign again. Soon enough, Boiler got into the business. One day, he went to collect money. A person gave money in Boiler's right hand. Boiler took the money with a blank expression on his face as his other hand quickly flipped on top of his other hand. Boiler's eyes stare at the other person's eyes, who had a very nervous look. Boiler went up to a person on the sidewalk. The guy stopped and noticed Boiler and started to smile at him. Without warning, Boiler went up to him and grabbed him by his shirt's collar and started threatening him. The guy was looking very intimidated as he looked at Boiler's face, only to get even more scared. A muscular-looking guy was walking up to Boiler, and as he reached near him, his right hand touched Boiler's hand. Boiler squeezed his hand as hard as he could, and the muscular guy went on his knees while grinding his teeth out of immense pain. A person laid there, unconscious on the ground, while Boiler looked through the unconscious body and found a wallet and some little change. Boiler stood up and kicked the unconscious body in the stomach numerous times. Boiler then left the body alone and immediately left the spot before anyone could catch him. He went to count up the money he had gotten as he stood under an abandoned highway bridge. At the background of here, he was standing, there was a construction site. That day, Boiler felt fantastic. Collecting money, beating up Chump. Everyone knew him, and everyone was afraid of him. Life was going great, as he was loving what he did for a living. Things continued working that way, until that one time. Boiler finally met that one guy who wasn't afraid of him. The revelation came as a blow to Boiler's gut, hurting his ego in the process. One day, a couple was walking on the sidewalk as the couple laughed out loud at something funny they had witnessed. Boiler walked across the road and went up to the couple and stopped him because he wanted to talk to them. He asked the man, "Hi, it's me. Sorry to bother you and your lovely lady here. I was wondering if you are still going to pay me for the money you owe? Because I don't really like tardiness." In response, the man didn't say anything. Instead, the couple started to laugh at Boiler. The couple then pulled out sliver pistols and pointed at Boiler's face. However, Boiler wasn't fazed by the move, as he had a straight blank face. The guy then said, "I don't want to pay you, because me and my girl just don't give a fuck about what you do." "Homo, motherfucker!" The lady looked at Boiler with disgust as she said, "Yeah, eat a dick, homo." The couple walked away and were still laughing at Boiler. Boiler stood still at the sidewalk as he watched the couple passing by happily. He turned his head towards the ground and then was looking down at the concrete of the pavement. Then he looked up straight, with emotionless eyes. He knew he had to do something as he felt mortified for not being able to intimidate the couple. A nice apartment door was being opened. The lady who was laughing at Boiler entered the apartment before closing the door behind her back. She put her jacket on a chair and headed towards a sink in front of the chair. Next to the sink's right, she looked at the dirty dishes and a little dish soap. The lady's right hand turned on the red handle as she grabbed the dish soap. Water was falling from the tap, and the lady started washing the dishes, but her right index middle ring fingers got a little hurt from the hot water. "Ow!" The lady hissed in pain and started blowing at the spot where the hot water had hit her. She quickly grabbed a washcloth from the left side of the sink and gently started wiping the water off of the burnt finger while blowing air from her mouth at the burn, trying everything to soothe it. The lady looked a little annoyed at her finger, with a frown marring her face, as she hoped for the burning sensation to go away soon. Later at night, when the entire neighborhood seemed to have gone to bed, except for that one apartment adjacent to hers, who had this weird habit of staying up late and cooking at ungodly hours, the lady decides to retire to bed as well. She quickly slipped out of her dress and adorned a silk, long nightgown that was finished with fine lace having intricate patterns that increased the delicacy of the fabric as well as the gown. Once changed into her nightwear, the lady went to her bedroom and, without further ado, retired to her bed. She covered her drained body with the duvet that matched the bed sheets. She turned towards her left side and, in one swift motion, tapped the switch to turn off the lamp placed on her bedside table. Soon enough, the room was shrouded in darkness. The lady went to sleep and turned to her left side for better comfort, and also out of habit. As the lady was sleeping, there was a calm smile at her face, like she was assured that nothing could go wrong in her life or in her sleep. Suddenly, a huge figure appeared at the doorway of the bedroom. The lady was fast asleep, thus had no idea what was going on around her. It was Boiler. He stood in the doorway, leaning on the door as he stared at the sleeping figure perched peacefully in the bed. He looked at her calm expression and unbothered sleep and wondered if she would ever be able to sleep that way again. He kept staring at her as she had a seductive body with silky, smooth skin, low waist, lovely behind, and big, natural breasts. A beautiful face that made men and women giggle for her. Boiler thought to himself, he didn't want to pay? Fine. I have to do something unfortunate to the person he loves, or the finest achievement he's ever owned. Boiler left the lady's bedroom door and walked towards the living room. He had no idea how he was going to do the deed, and tries to search for something that could help him. He looked around the living room and found the lady's jacket lying at the chair by the dining table. The table was placed between the living room and the kitchen. Boiler went up and picked the jacket. He searched all the pockets to find anything useful that could help him in taking revenge from the couple. He searched, and from one of the pockets, he found a pistol. Boiler peered at the gun closely and realized that it was the same pistol that the lady had pointed at Boiler earlier that day. Guess she's going to regret that move big time and remember me for the rest of her life, Boiler thought to himself. He quickly pulled out the pistol from her jacket and looked at it for a few minutes. He made the decision that he wasn't going to use it because he didn't want to. He thought that it'd be easy to get away. Taking a bullet and leaving the world did not seem as painful as Boiler liked paybacks to be. Boiler did not look impressed at all and put the pistol somewhere else. Boiler thought, anyone can grab a gun and be threatening. I want to do something different. Boiler entered the kitchen, leaving the jacket where it was initially. He looked around the entire vicinity of the kitchen, but found nothing. He then went down on his knees and opened the sink cupboard. Suddenly, as if a flash of recent memory had hit him, he stood up and looked in front of him. There was a window right on top of the sink, and he looked ahead, out of the window. Boiler saw some people inside another apartment's kitchen that was visible through their window. The apartment was across from the one he was at, and he stared keenly at the people who were cooking, probably making supper. The neighbors seemed to be boiling water in a pot as the water got spilled all over the stove due to a slight push. Boiler watched all the commotion silently, with a blank expression on his face. After noticing for some time, Boiler finally made up his mind. He bent down, opened the bottom cupboard, and retrieved a big pot out of the cupboard. He stood up quickly and swiftly made his way towards the sink. He turned the knob of the tap on, and water started flowing out of the tap into the pot. Once the pot was filled with water, he put it on the stove and lit it up. Boiler patiently waited for the water to boil as he watched the water in the pot with a sinister smile. The water finally started boiling as steam appeared out of it. The water bubbles started appearing on the surface, and one could notice that there was turbulence within the water in the pot. Boiler removed the pot from the stove carefully, not to burn himself in the process. Again, with a blank face, he stepped out of the kitchen, and with measured steps, he made his way towards the living room, on the trail that led him to the lady's bedroom. Without another thought, Boiler was inside the lady's bedroom. He quickly made his way towards her bed and was soon standing on the bed. The lady was still fast asleep and had no idea of what was going to happen, or if there was another presence in her bedroom. She started rolling on her right side, and her hands reached near the tip of her nose in the process. Boiler was standing on top of her on the bed. His legs were straddling her sleeping figure as she slightly tossed in bed. Boiler was holding the big pot's handles with oven mitts so as to protect his own hands from the heat. He put the pot on his chest, while his right hand was holding it still in place. Boiler took the lid off with his left hand and threw it on the floor on his left. The lid landed on the floor within minutes and made a loud thud as it came in contact with the ground. The lady rolled on her back, and her eyes slightly fluttered open. When she opened her eyes, she was startled by the sight in front of her. In a haphazard state, she woke up and looked surprised. "Surprise?" Boiler said in a cheerful tone, before he mercilessly threw the steaming water from the pot on the lady. The water landed on the lady's face, and as soon as the hot water came in contact with her skin, she started shouting and yelling. Her face was all heating up and turning a deep red. She felt like her skin was melting away. Despite her wails, Boiler gave her a half smile while closing his eyes. She was screaming and yelling in pain as the hot water hits her face. The prettiness from her face was slowly smearing off, and it smelled like burnt meat in the room. Boiler was walking to the front door by passing by the living room. He stopped and looked back at Lady's bedroom. The lady was still screaming, but Boiler was still smiling. Boiler opened the door and left the place. When the door closed, he stopped hearing the screams as they died down within the confines of the lady's apartment. When people heard about this, they started to call me Boiler. I don't think it was a positive name, but it gets the message across. And, besides, it's okay if people don't want to pay me. You can take as much money from me as you want, as long as I get to boil you for being a dishonest person, Boiler said nonchalantly. Dam and Airdrie's mouths are open, and with an astonished look on their face, both are staring at Boiler with disbelief. Airdrie stammers out after some time. So, how many people did you boil? Boiler responds, 13. No, wait. 15th is coming up soon. Who was number 14? Dam asks. Boiler replies to his question saying, This guy whom I boiled last night. He was staying at Sleeve's Grand Motel. Dam asks curiously, Was he young? Boiler says, No. He was 64 years old, I think. Airdrie interrupts as he asks, Wait, how did you boil him? Boiler simply answers, I carry a slow cooker and a jug of water and a big extension cord in a big black bag around. Dam asks, Who's your next victim? Boiler grins at Dam. He then proceeds to respond, A very special man, who has... He pauses for a moment. Boiler picks up his cell phone in his right hand and looks at the ticking clock. He looks back at Dam and continues answering. 1 hour and 48 minutes and 2 seconds left. Boiler looks at Dam right in the eyes. Then, suddenly, as if remembering something, he says, Well, I better go and get back inside and get ready. When I see 15, I'll let him know you came by. With that being said, Boiler closes the door. Airdrie looks at Dam on his left. With concern, Airdrie says, Well, I guess Anne is going to be next? Airdrie is looking towards the closed door. He hears Dam's response as he says, Yeah. Fuck. I can't let the sicko do that to him. What kind of person scorches someone? Airdrie slowly removes his gaze from the door and looks back at Dam, remembering from his story that he also scorched someone. We got to stop him. Bravery words from Dam's mouth. Airdrie analyzes his suggestion for a moment before responding, Okay. How? Dam looks at Airdrie. Then, after thinking for a moment, he responds, We break down the door, attack him, and we'll go on from there. Airdrie sounds unsure as he says, Okay. What? Dam replies, Don't worry. Just let me attack him, and you stay out here. Watch the hallways. Make sure no one is eavesdropping. Palm is sitting at his desk. He is busy writing down something in his notebook. He has made some sort of notes, as one can see in the notebook that he has jotted down some pointer. The notes read, Windsor Vanity Career, Unusual Son's Name, Boiler Deranged Origins, Boiler Victim at the Sleeves Hotel, Anne is going to be the 15th victim of Boiler's vendetta, Dam's assault in Anne's apartment. As he is still busy writing, Airdrie's static voice reaches his ears from the computer as he says, Who's going to eavesdrop? Palm looks up and is now watching the computer screen carefully. Dam's static voice comes out as he says, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being paranoid and... Airdrie's voice cut him as his static voice says, Hey, your phone is still on. As soon as Palm hears that, he looks worried at the monitor screen. Dam's static voice asks Airdrie as he says, Oh, really? How do you close it? Like this, Airdrie's static voice says. The flip phone is closed. The screen goes back to black, and the red font that reads Product Off appears in the middle of the screen again. Palm sighs and says, "Rats! I guess I won't get the whole story." Palm's right elbow is on the table, and his right fist is holding on his right cheek. He looks up and says, "Well, I better check on Airdrie's friend, I guess. See if his lover has told him that she's pregnant again." As soon as Palma's attention gets away from the monitor screen, he hears something. Apparently, the phone is back on, and he can hear voices. The sounds of people struggling are coming from the flip phone. Soon Palm hears Boiler's static voice as he exclaims, "You crazy, wah, fuck! What the fuck are you doing?